So you're looking to buy a house. You can't decide between Kenosha or Pleasant Prairie. Which town is better? Which town should you buy in? Should you buy in the bigger city of Kenosha? Should you buy in the smaller town that's a little more rural, a little more quieter, Pleasant Prairie? How do you decide? How do you pick? Today, let's go over the pluses and minuses of both towns. They're both basically the same town. If you ask any Pleasant Prairiean or any Kenoshan, if those are even words, I have no idea what the differences are. They'll say there's really no difference because they're basically the same town. They're both so close to each other. They're both kind of the same town. They're both the same school district and everything like that. And there's really no difference. But there are some very minor differences that may sway you towards one town or the other. So let's go over those towns and see which one you may like better. By the way, I'm Chad Scott, your local Kenosha Realtor here. I go over everything that's Kenosha, Racine County, Kenosha County. I answer any questions you may have about real estate, or anything that's home buying or home selling related. I'm happy to answer any questions you may have. Just go ahead and drop them down here in the comments for me. And I'm excited to get into this video with you guys. Now let's jump in. Let's start off with Kenosha, because who doesn't love a classic? Kenosha's been here probably the longest. Started off way back in, I don't even remember when. I did a video on when Kenosha started a little while ago. But Kenosha's been here a long time ago. It's gone through 3 or 4 or 5 different name changes. But Kenosha's the big boy in town here. It's been here the longest. It's the big boy. It has the most population here in southeast Wisconsin, other than Milwaukee, of course. And it has the most jobs, of course, than any other town here other than Milwaukee. Kenosha obviously has the most things to do. It has all the museums. It has the streetcars. Who doesn't love a streetcar? Who doesn't love riding around in a streetcar for just a penny? You can jump on. You can do the little circle around downtown Kenosha. Jump off pretty much anywhere you want. Jump back on. Do that little circle around downtown. It's absolutely fantastic. It's a lot of fun. In those nice breezy summer days, it's not too hot, not too cold. It's a lot of fun. Kids love it. Adults love it. It's a great time. If you've never been on the streetcar in downtown Kenosha, I highly recommend it. Go down there someday and enjoy it. It's a lot of fun. They even run it during the winter time. As long as there's not too much snow, they're usually running. Another great thing about Kenosha is that Kenosha generally has a lot more affordable housing options. So if you're shopping on a budget and you just can't afford a lot of housing, Kenosha's probably the best bet for you. Kenosha just has a lot more affordable housing neighborhoods. Their neighborhoods are just older, they're smaller, their houses tend to be smaller, they tend to be built a long time ago, like early 1900s, late 1800s, some even early 1800s. So their houses are a lot cheaper. They're just a lot more affordable for you. So if you're shopping for a house on a budget, you just can't afford, those $400,000, $500,000, $350,000 houses. And you're looking for those cheaper houses that are maybe $150,000, maybe $200,000, maybe even less. Kenosha is probably the city that you want to look in. You're not going to find too many houses in Pleasant Prairie that are under $200,000. You'll find them here and there, but you're not going to find a lot of them. So if you're shopping for a house on a budget, you're probably going to want to stick to Kenosha. If you love Lake Michigan, Kenosha is probably the best option for you. Pleasant Prairie does have some Lake Michigan access, but Kenosha has a lot more Lake Michigan access than Pleasant Prairie does. Kenosha has at least 2 or 3 different boat launches that I know of into Lake Michigan. Plus you have the pier downtown. You have the harbor walk downtown Kenosha. You have the whole harbor access down there. You have the boathouse that's right on the harbor there. You have the lakefront walk. You have so much lake access. All the parks downtown Kenosha. You have so much lake access. You have all the beaches in Kenosha. There's so much Lake Michigan access in Kenosha, you just can't compare. Pleasant Prairie does have some Lake Michigan access, but it's really just confined to the Carroll Beach area, which is mostly residential. There's not really a lot of parks in Pleasant Prairie that has Lake Michigan access. There are a couple little parks in Pleasant Prairie that are in the Carroll Beach area, but they're not really, I wouldn't say that they're really well taken care of. They're just kind of there. They're maintained a little bit, and they're just kind of there for public access. You can sit on them. You can dip your toes in the water. You can relax a little bit. But they're nothing spectacular, kind of like the Kenosha beaches, public beaches, the Kenosha access to Lake Michigan. Pleasant Prairie's access to Lake Michigan kind of seems like an afterthought. Pleasant Prairie is kind of like, hey, we have this huge lake here. We should probably do something with it. Oh, by the way, we built all these houses around it. We're going to go ahead and section off this little bit of land here and put a little bit of beach access here. It seems like it was kind of an afterthought to Pleasant Prairie, but they did do a little bit of something there. So I'll give them a little bit of credit there. Downtown vibe. If you want a downtown vibe, Kenosha definitely has Pleasant Prairie beat. Just because Pleasant Prairie doesn't have a downtown. When you go to downtown Pleasant Prairie, it's just their municipal building, a fire station, and now a brand new police station and a Chase Bank. It's all their downtown is. There's no stores. There's no small businesses. That's it. That's their downtown. Kenosha's downtown is vibrant. There's a lot of small businesses, restaurants. There are apartments above the restaurants. There's, of course, the city municipal buildings. There's the police department down there. There's the courthouse down there. There's the sheriff's office down there. There is Lake Michigan down there. There's all kinds of things in downtown Kenosha. There's the streetcars down there. The 4th of July celebration is downtown Kenosha. Pretty much if you need anything downtown Kenosha, it's down there. It's a lot of fun downtown. There's a lot of events that happen every spring and summer downtown Kenosha. They section off parts of the streets down there, and they have a lot of events down there, like car shows, live band events down there. There's just a lot of fun things that happen downtown Kenosha. So if you love a vibrant, happening downtown Kenosha is definitely for you over Pleasant Prairie. Commuters. If you tend to commute to work from Kenosha and you work somewhere else other than Kenosha, especially if you work in the Chicagoland area, Kenosha is probably the better bet for you because Kenosha has Metro access. There is a Metro train station downtown Kenosha. You just hop on the Metro, it'll take you straight to, I believe it's Oval B station downtown Chicago. It doesn't take you to Union Station, the bigger train station down there. It's Oval B station, but it's still downtown Chicago. Of course, there are dozens of stops along the way. I think it stops in Zion, Waukegan, Highland Park, all kinds of stops along the way, not on the way to Chicago. So if you're working into the suburbs along that way, we just get off the train anywhere down there, maybe grab an Uber or a taxi and take that to work. Saves you on gas, saves you on time. You can read the paper on the way down to work, maybe jump on your computer. I'm pretty sure the train has free Wi-Fi, or just use the hotspot on your phone. Just do some work on the way to and from work. Maybe catch a quick nap, whatever you want to do. Saves you on gas, saves you on the hassle from driving to and from work also. I know a lot of people just hate fighting traffic, especially that Chicago traffic. So if you hate commuting to and from work, the Metro may be a viable option for you. Look at me, a true Chicagoan here saying the Metro. Now, of course, you can't have the pros without the cons, so let's get into some cons of Kenosha. Traffic. Now, of course, in any big city, there's always traffic. And Kenosha is no exception to this rule. In some of the more popular areas of Kenosha, such as Highway 50, some areas of downtown, traffic can be a real pain in the butt down there. Kenosha is getting more and more popular, the population is growing, and traffic is just getting worse and worse as the years go on. They're trying to keep up. They are trying to keep up with the infrastructure around Kenosha. They are widening roads. They are repaving roads. They are trying to do a really good job with the infrastructure around Kenosha. However, population is just growing a little too fast for them to keep up with the construction, and it's just getting worse and worse. So, if you hate traffic, unfortunately, there's just not too much you can do. And even if you live in Pleasant Prairie, odds are you'll have to come to Kenosha at some point just for necessities like grocery stores, drugstores, things like that. So you'll probably have to deal with the traffic at some point anyway. That brings me to con number 2, older infrastructure. Kenosha is older, like I said. So our streets, our pipes, the houses, the electric grid, everything is just older in Kenosha. So if you're looking for a newer house in Kenosha, you'll probably find it. There are some new construction areas in Kenosha. There are some newer houses that have gone up recently. Some houses that are built in the last 2 or 3 years, or even the last year or so. But there are a lot of older houses that were built in the mid to early 1900s, even late 1800s. So odds are, if you're buying an existing construction house, it'll probably probably built in the mid to early 1900s, maybe even late 1800s. And like I said, our roads are just really old. A lot of them are just not well maintained. They're trying really hard. They're trying to get to them. It takes time and money. And, like every city, they just run out of time because of the winter, and they run out of money because, money, everybody doesn't have enough money. So it just is what it is. If crime is a concern for you, then like every major city, well, like every city in the world, Kenosha does have crime. I won't sugarcoat it for you. Every city in the world has some crime. Kenosha is no exception. There is some crime in Kenosha. Kenosha is considered a major city. It has a population of over 100,000 people. So there is crime. There are robberies. There is violent crime. So if you read the papers, if you look at the online articles, if you look at the headlines across the country, Kenosha does make the headlines every now and then. There is crime in Kenosha. If crime is a concern for you, just look at the crime reports in the neighborhood that you're looking to buy in. That'll tell you whether or not that neighborhood is right for you or not. Slow snow removal is the last con in Kenosha that I'm going to cover today. So Kenosha is big. It is a big city. So if you're in one of the smaller neighborhoods, if you're in one of the last neighborhoods to have snow removed, it may take a while for the snow plows to get to you. So let's say you're in one of the older neighborhoods that are really small, and you're like in an alley or something. And alleys are probably the last to be plowed by the city, because let's face it, not a lot of people use alleys for access. So alleys are the last to be plowed. It just is what it is. Unfortunately, there's not a lot you can do about it. All you can do is wait. Maybe you can just go shovel it yourself, buy yourself a snow blower, and start snow blowing some of it yourself. But it is what it is. There's not too much you can do about it. The city has hired a bunch of workers to come plow to work for the city and help out. But unfortunately, it just takes a little while to plow all the city streets in the winter, especially after a big snowfall. So that's just one unfortunate part of living in a big city. Every major city, Milwaukee, Chicago, New York, they all struggle with the snow removal problems. Now, let's move on to Pleasant Prairie. So the first pro of Pleasant Prairie, it is quiet, spacious neighborhoods. If you're looking for more of that county feel, like the west of the eye feel, Pleasant Prairie may be for you. So if you want that more like I can stretch my arms and not touch my neighbor feel, there are a lot of neighborhoods in Pleasant Prairie that are like that. Especially the older neighborhoods that aren't brand new, that weren't pre-planned. You may have a bigger lot. Like my house in Pleasant Prairie, we have almost 3/4 of an acre of a lot. My neighborhood was not pre-planned. My neighborhood was built in the 1970s, I want to say, something like that, 1950s maybe. So our lots are bigger here in my neighborhood. It just means that there's more to maintain though. It is a good thing and a bad thing, but it means that my neighbors aren't right on top of me. I can see my neighbors, but I can't reach out my window and touch my neighbor's house. There's a lot of space between me and my neighbor's houses, which I like it that way. I know all my neighbors, I like all my neighbors, but they aren't right on top of me. We have our space. So if you like a little bit of space between you and your neighbors, like out in the county, Pleasant Prairie may be the right choice for you. Top-notch schools. So Kenosha and Pleasant Prairie both use Kenosha Unified School District. They're both the same school district. However, the schools in Pleasant Prairie are rated a little bit higher than a lot of the schools in Kenosha. Just because the schools in Pleasant Prairie, the schools that are actually in the village of Pleasant Prairie, are actually rated higher than the schools that are in the city of Kenosha. Probably because Pleasant Prairie, I guess you could consider Pleasant Prairie like a suburb of Kenosha. So the schools that are in Pleasant Prairie are kind of like suburban schools. So they probably get a little bit more of the tax money, or they just are distributed a little bit more, or they get kids that are a little more well off. I honestly don't know why they're rated higher. They don't have the inner city kids going to the schools generally, don't have as much money going to those schools. So the schools that are in Pleasant Prairie, so your boundary schools when you live here in Pleasant Prairie, the schools are rated a little bit higher. So that's a good thing if schools are important to you and your family, the type of education that your kids get. If you're not paying for private education and you're looking for good schools, of course, always check the school's rating online. There's lots of websites that you can check to see what grades the schools get. Generally, the schools in Pleasant Prairie have a good rating, but like every school, there's a couple schools here and there that don't always have the best rating. So check it and see what those schools are getting. See if it's a good school for you or not. Pro number 3 of Pleasant Prairie: the Recplex and shopping at the premium outlet store. So the Recplex here in Pleasant Prairie is like an all-in-one gym. So it has gym equipment, it has basketball courts, it has racquetball courts, it has an indoor pool, it has an indoor track, it has an outdoor track, it has Lake Andrea and Man-Made Lake, it has basketball courts. If you could think about it, it has an ice rink also. If you could think it, it probably has it. It is a membership gym. And when you pay for a membership, you have access to all of that stuff. They do a lot of special events there. They do swimming competitions. They do basketball competitions. They do the Iron Woman competition, the Iron Man competition there. A lot of track events, school events, those kind of stuff. Nationwide competitions and stuff like that. It is the nation's biggest all-in-one sports complex in the country, located right here in Pleasant Prairie. And if you are a Pleasant Prairie resident, you get a discount on your membership. Lake Andrea also has a beach. And if you are a Pleasant Prairie resident, you get free access, or maybe it's discounted access. I don't remember what it was this year. I think we got free access to that beach. I don't think we had to pay for it, but I honestly don't remember. To that beach, to Lake Andrea. So if you love lake access, but you don't like Lake Michigan maybe, and you want a smaller lake that's not as crowded as Lake Michigan, Lake Andrea may be the perfect place for you. Lake Andrea, by the way, is a no-motor lake. There are no motors allowed on that lake, so there's only paddle boats, electric motors, stuff like that. If you have a gas motor, you cannot take your boat on there and use a gas motor. So it's a nice little lake. They do fish out of there. They do boat races in that lake. So once a year they do allow electric or gas motors on that lake. So it's not always no motors allowed. And shopping at the Prime Outlet Mall. So Pleasant Prairie is also home to the Pleasant Prairie Prime Outlet Mall. It's out by the interstate on the edge of Pleasant Prairie and Bristol on the border there. If you love to shop and you love great deals, the Pleasant Prairie Prime Outlet Mall may be the great spot for you. Of course, if you live in Kenosha, you can always go there and shop yourself. You don't have to live in Pleasant Prairie to shop there. They'll let anybody shop there. We get a lot of people from Illinois that drive up here and shop there because it's cheap and it's close to the border, and who doesn't love a great deal? Pro number 4, newer homes and developments. So Pleasant Prairie, I kind of alluded to this in the Kenosha thing. Pleasant Prairie tends to have a lot more newer homes and newer developments. Now that's a good thing and a bad thing. So the good thing is that if you love newer homes that don't need a lot of work right away, that are move-in ready, and you just have to move in and make yourself at home and not have to worry about maintenance in the near future, that's fantastic. However, that also means that it drives up the prices of homes in Pleasant Prairie. So a lot of these newer homes, you can't get any cheaper than $400,000 at a minimum. These new homes, these new construction homes are starting off at $400,000 and up. So if you're looking for a home at, let's say a starter home at $200,000 and under, you're gonna have to settle for a home that's built in the 1970s or 1950s. And you may have to look at that Kenosha area or the older part of Pleasant Prairie that has homes in that age range. You probably won't be able to look at the newer parts of Pleasant Prairie or Kenosha that have new construction homes, just because those prices are just too expensive for a lot of people. And you know what? That's okay. That happens. Not everybody can afford those homes. Reason number 5 to pick Pleasant Prairie over Kenosha: lower crime rates. So I mentioned that Kenosha has higher crime rates. Well, obviously, Pleasant Prairie has lower crime rates. So that's obvious because Pleasant Prairie is just a smaller town. It has a lower population. It has a lower footprint. It's not as big of a village as Kenosha is of a city. So it has a lower crime rate. Pleasant Prairie is more rural It's not as much city. I would consider Pleasant Prairie more country than it is city. There's very few parts of Pleasant Prairie that are developed, I guess you could say. The most developed part of Pleasant Prairie is out by Highway 50. Highway 50 and 94, that's kind of like the most developed part of Pleasant Prairie. And the rest of Pleasant Prairie is pretty much all homes and then like undeveloped farmland and just industrial kind of stuff. So it's just a quieter area, and most of our crime, honestly, if you look at the newspapers and the police scanner, is usually just kind of car chases, high-speed chases. You'll see the occasional home break-in, car theft, that kind of stuff. Of course, we do have the occasional major crime, stabbing, that kind of stuff, but not the kind of stuff that you see in Kenosha. But, if crime is a big deal to you, check the crime rate maps online and see if the neighborhood that you're looking to buy in has high crime rates and what kind of crime they tend to see in that area. And see if that neighborhood's the right fit for you or not. Now, let's move on to the cons of Pleasant Prairie. Because of course, if there's pros, there's always cons. Con number 1, higher housing prices. I mentioned this before, but it's worth mentioning again. There's just higher housing prices here in Pleasant Prairie. There's just no way around it. Homes in Pleasant Prairie just cost more than Kenosha. A comparable home here in Pleasant Prairie is going to cost you about $20,000 to $30,000 to $50,000 more in Pleasant Prairie than it would cost you in Kenosha, just because you're in Pleasant Prairie. People put a value on living in Pleasant Prairie. They want to live in Pleasant Prairie over Kenosha. They just want to say that I live in Pleasant Prairie, I don't live in Kenosha. There's a few reasons for that. 1, because the taxes are lower. 2, because the crime rate's lower. 3, because it's closer to the border for commuting. People just like Pleasant Prairie over Kenosha. So there's a premium on homes in Pleasant Prairie. And there's just a lot less homes for sale in Pleasant Prairie than there are in Kenosha, too. Con number 2, limited public transit options. So if you rely on the bus to get you to and from work or to and from school, Pleasant Prairie probably isn't the best option for you. There are city buses that go to and from Pleasant Prairie, but not all of Pleasant Prairie. As you get further out in Pleasant Prairie, further towards the Illinois border, other areas of Pleasant Prairie, the bus just becomes more and more rare. Bus routes become more and more infrequent, so you may have to wait longer and longer between buses for you to catch the bus and get to your job or school or wherever it is that you're going. So if you rely on public transit to get you around, Pleasant Prairie probably isn't the best bet for you. Con number 3, fewer dining and entertainment options. So Pleasant Prairie just has fewer restaurants and fewer things to do. Pleasant Prairie as a village in total just has fewer restaurants than Kenosha. It has fewer things to do. It's just a smaller town. There just isn't as much business that's come to Pleasant Prairie as there is Kenosha. But like I said earlier in the video, Kenosha and Pleasant Prairie are basically the same. They butt up right against each other. Parts of Pleasant Prairie go into Kenosha. Parts of Kenosha go right into Pleasant Prairie. Actually, the neighborhood that I live in, you go a couple blocks west and it becomes Kenosha all of a sudden. So this con I don't really think is a big con because you just drive an extra minute, half a minute, and you just go to another dining option or entertainment option. But it is technically a con to living in Pleasant Prairie. Con number 4 to living in Pleasant Prairie, there's stricter zoning requirements in Pleasant Prairie. So if you buy a house in Pleasant Prairie and you want to put up, let's say, a pole barn, or you want to have a chicken coop in your backyard, or you want to put up a fence, Pleasant Prairie zoning laws are a lot stricter in the village than they are in the city of Kenosha. So Kenosha allows for chicken coops in Kenosha. However, you have to have a certain size yard. You have to have the chicken coop has to be a certain size. They have pretty strict requirements for that. Pleasant Prairie, I don't believe allows chicken coops at this time. That could change in the near future. Last I heard is that they're trying to pass something allowing that. Whether or not it'll actually go anywhere, I have no idea. I know that when we put up our fence in Pleasant Prairie, it was a pain in the butt. They had a whole bunch of hoops we had to jump through. They had to inspect it like 4 or 5 different times. They just have a lot of different bureaucratic hoops you have to jump through in Pleasant Prairie. They want Pleasant Prairie to be very uniform and look the same throughout the whole village. It's just a thing that Pleasant Prairie does and has, and If you want to put anything up in Pleasant Prairie, if you want to do anything to your house or your yard that requires a permit or anything like that from the village, it's something you're going to have to do and something you're going to have to get used to. Whereas Kenosha, for the most part, you just go down there, you ask for the permit, they approve it, and the inspector might come out once or twice and they'll put their stamp on it and you're good to go. Con number 5 to living in Pleasant Prairie, there are very few sidewalks in Pleasant Prairie. So if you're a big walker like me and you love to go out for walks during the day or during the night or at any time, or if you have young kids and you love to go walking with your kids, most neighborhoods in Pleasant Prairie, except for the newer ones, do not have sidewalks. Pleasant Prairie, until recently, did not require sidewalks when building a new construction neighborhood. Now when building a new construction neighborhood, you had to put in sidewalks in that neighborhood. But up until, I want to say like 2010, 2015, they did not have to put in any sidewalks. So most of the neighborhoods around Pleasant Prairie do not have any sidewalks in them. My neighborhood has no sidewalks. About 95% of the neighborhoods in Pleasant Prairie do not have any sidewalks. They probably never will have any sidewalks because to install sidewalks in all the neighborhoods of Pleasant Prairie will be very expensive to not only the village but to all the homeowners, because there'll be a tax assessment on all the homeowners and that'll make everybody very unhappy. So I don't see that happening anytime soon. But something to be aware of. If you love to walk, if you like to put your kids in strollers all around the neighborhood, there are no sidewalks there are very few sidewalks in Pleasant Prairie. So really, to recap, there aren't really that many differences between Pleasant Prairie and Kenosha. They're both pretty much the same city. It just kind of depends on where you want to live. Pleasant Prairie has cheaper taxes. Pleasant Prairie has more expensive homes. Pleasant Prairie is closer to the Illinois border, so if you drive to work, that may be a little more convenient for you. Kenosha has more to do. Kenosha has cheaper housing. Kenosha is just, I think, is a more fun city to do stuff in. But if you live in Pleasant Prairie like I do, it's not very far to drive to, unless you're living way out in Pleasant Prairie somewhere and you have to drive 15-20 minutes to get to downtown Kenosha. So, it kind of depends on what you want to do, how far you want to drive to get to things. Everybody has their own preferences, everybody has their own wants, everybody has their own budget. So, depending on which city you're looking at, give me a call, shoot me a text. All my contact information is down below in the information section of the video here. I'd be happy to talk over the options with you. We can discuss them together, decide on which city is best for you. Maybe neither city is best for you. Maybe we should look at the Racine area. Maybe we should look out in the county area. Maybe those options are best for you. I don't know. We should talk it over and see what your wants, see what your needs are, and see which area we think is best for you. I'd be happy to talk it over with you guys. We can come to a conclusion together. If you guys like this video, please do me a huge favor. Hit that like button for me. It really encourages YouTube to keep pushing this video out to new people so they come back here, watch this video, enjoy it, and keep watching more videos. If you guys keep finding yourself coming back and watching more of my videos, do me another favor and hit that subscribe button. It encourages me to keep making more videos like this for you, so that you keep staying informed about the market and what real estate is really like and what the market is doing. I hope that you guys enjoyed this video. If you guys have any questions at all, please leave me a comment, shoot me a text, or give me a call. I'd be happy to answer any questions for you at all. I hope that you have a fantastic rest of your day, and I can't wait to see you in the next video.